Welcome to a special edition of Whitetail Rendezvous. What's so special? Well, I've asked 6 of my friends who live out here in the Rockies and are DIY archery hunters to share tips, techniques, and resources that they use to be very successful elk and mule deer hunters. One thing you got to remember, April 4th, 2017 is the closing of applications for applying for limited elk and mule deer. All the mule deer tags in Colorado are by draw only. Now, there's many areas in Colorado where you can apply for an elk, or you can choose to take an over-the-counter tag. As you might imagine, there's fewer hunters in the limited draw areas, but you still can get a tag, and we have hundreds of thousands of acres of Forest Service land, so you can pick the place you want to hunt. Talking about picking a place, there's no better research tool than GoHunt.com Insider. And I have Brandon Evans as a guest on the show, and he's going to lead off telling you why GoHunt.com is the place to go, why Insider will give you all the information that you need to know about hunting Colorado. Why? Because I wrote many of the big game unit profiles. What does that mean? You're going to find at GoHunt.com how many preference points it takes. What's the class of trophy that's in there? Is it a 260 bull, a 300 bull, or a 350 bull? As you might imagine, a 350 bull, if it's in a limited draw area, it's going to take a heck of a lot of preference points. It might take years, but they'll still give you the opportunity to use their resource tools to find a place that has 265 bulls, Pope and Young bulls, and you can get an over-the-counter tag. So Brandon Evans from GoHunt.com Insider is going to share how, why, when, and where you can be a successful DIY hunter in the state of Colorado for elk and mule deer. Oh, one thing I want you all to remember, you need to listen to the whole show to get the promo code. What's the promo code going to do? When you sign up to be a member of GoHunt.com Insider, you will be given a Sportsman Warehouse gift card. How much is that gift card? Well, you're going to have to listen to the end of the show to get that. Hey, folks, sit back, relax, and dream about hunting elk and mule deer in the Rockies, specifically in the state of Colorado, coming up this fall. Welcome to a special edition of Whitetail Rendezvous. No, we're not going to talk about whitetail hunting today. Actually, if you listen to the shows before this, we're talking about how to DIY Rocky Mountain elk and mule deer. On the phone today, I have a DIY hunter, Jason Reid. Jason is the marketing manager for Crossman. And if you don't know about Crossman, then you probably never shot a BB gun. Having said that, Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks for having me on yet again. Always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. And so, Jason, you know, I've known you've stomped the ridges and box canyons and mountain slopes, north-facing slopes of the Rockies. So, you know, I'm going to give you a mic for a while and kind of tell people at the beginning why you decided to come out and just tell the story about being a DIY hunter out west.
Right. Well, I mean, like a lot of people, you know, the dream is always there, especially living in the East. You know, living in New York, I mean, I've cut my teeth on whitetails, turkey, waterfowl. But it'd be hard pressed to find a hunter that doesn't love the romance of the mountains and the power of the mountains. And I really credit a lot of my drive to be an elk hunter from my father, because it was his dream, you know, as a little kid to have the chance to go elk hunting. And I can remember back in the late 90s when he finally achieved that dream and drove out to Colorado with a friend of his, and they had no idea what they were doing. And they stomped around Colorado for, you know, 2 years without any success. But there was something that, you know, the stories that came back with my father that lit something inside of me. And then he met a good friend of his through his industry, who actually was the story is it was a throwdown bet that nobody could keep up with the guy I call, you know, Uncle Bryce. And so there was a throwdown bet that nobody ever wanted to hunt with Bryce because he hunted too hard. And my dad said, okay, I'll take the bet. And so they have been hunting partners for the better part of 15 or 16 years. And, you know, having the chance to eat elk meat and see the pictures, hear the stories, has lit a very, very strong fire in my soul to not just go on an elk hunt, but become an elk hunter and contribute to the conservation efforts of the West and the public land battles of the West. And make that just a part of my being, and having the chance to, the privilege to travel west just on a general public land hunt, is something I don't take for granted. It's not something I take lightly, because I know there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of pressure, but that being said, it's something that just has become a part of it's become a part of who I am. And so the last couple of years I've gone on a handful of hunts with them, and so it does. But it's different coming from all the way out from the east, going west, and it starts really the day we get home from each hunt. The preparations for the next year start. And so for us, we do bounce around from finding different units, and some of the different things that we've done to achieve success really kind of revolves around the drop camp. And so for us, it does, it is a little bit of extra money to do so. I mean, I'm not opposed to doing backpack hunts by any stretch of the imagination. It's just the last couple of years, we've found that doing the drop camp hunt has allowed us the ability to get, obviously get deeper and into better game. So along with that, what comes with the territory there is the matter of it does cost extra money. And so for me, I work two jobs, work my day job, and then I'm a freelance writer at night. And I've been doing so for quite a few years now to just get the extra money to buy that elk tag. And it's something that I can't really explain to all of my other whitetail buddies or anyone. It's hard to explain, why I stay up till midnight every night after work to try to write an article, because it is something that's just so special. And so some of the things that I've learned with elk hunting, number one, I mean, obviously right now and in today's day and age, everyone's focused on the fitness aspect. Coming from the east, being fit for whitetails isn't necessarily thought of. You don't have to be in killer shape to go hunt a whitetail, because I'm sitting in my driveway right now and I can see one of my tree stands, and that's just kind of you don't have to go real far. It doesn't tax your body as much. But I've had to learn, and I've learned kind of from the pain of the mountains, that it certainly does pay off to put forth the effort to eat clean and exercise throughout the year consistently. I work, as hard as I can to what my body, to where my body can go to get the most out of it. And last year I realized I got myself into a scenario where I wished I had exercised even more and worked even harder in the off season, because I was trying to climb. I needed 50 more yards to get from a rock pile to this particular pine tree to cut off this group of elk that I was trying to get in front of. But I was in the very bottom of this canyon. It was day 8 out of 10 days, and I was gassed. And I just didn't have that extra fuel in the tank to get to this pine tree that I needed for the cover. And by the time I got there, the bull was already standing there broadside at 55 yards. Had I had that extra energy, that extra strength, in my legs, I probably wouldn't have eaten my tag last fall. So that provides some extra motivation there to get into the gym. Some of the things that I've really learned, though, I've really come to understand how important maps are. As an Eastern hunter, I sometimes take that for granted, just because I have the chance to go out on most pieces of property to hunt for deer often and learn that. But because I don't always get to, I'm only in elk camp for 10 or 11 days a year. It doesn't afford me a lot of time to really learn that property, or that not just that property, but that entire general area that we're hunting. And part of it too is, to really become successful, especially as an Eastern hunter, if you're going to travel out, one of the biggest things that I've told people is you've got to make a commitment to try to go back either every year or every other year if you really want to become successful, because you got to learn that chunk of ground, and be able to build that history, build that data, build that database of where the animals move. And for us, we've been hunting in a particular unit for probably 6 or 7 years now, and now we have reliable data to go on, that kind of helps with the learning curve every year when we get to camp. So taking a harder look at maps, and really spending the time reading what other seasoned elk hunters, picking up on their knowledge has been very, very vital to bucking the learning curve. So I spend a lot of time reading and watching videos. I think I've probably watched every elk hunting video on YouTube at this point, just to try to get that every little ounce of information that I can. And with elk, it's something different. I mean, you talk to any seasoned elk hunter, they're going to tell you that elk aren't spread out evenly like deer. And that's that's another point that I had to really come to understand about these particular animals. Learning how to really break down a map to the couple of areas on the mountain that animals probably will be, and just targeting, learning what to look for when it comes to elk. Like with the whitetail, I know what to look for. With an elk, still learning that process and becoming familiar with what to look for in that regard, and that takes some time. But again, for me, I'm committed to the journey, because I don't want to just go on an elk hunt every year. I want to become an elk hunter. And then I think the other, probably really the biggest, from what I've seen, really the biggest barrier. There are barriers to getting out west and doing it, and obviously finances is one. I'm trying to take as much advantage of my situation as where I'm at in life now, being in my 20s and not having a whole lot of familial commitments at this point, because I know someday that's not going to happen. So I'm trying to take as much advantage of my situation now to be able to go out and live these dreams. So, and that's kind of the long and the short of it now. Really, it does help to have friends and family that are already doing this. If I hadn't had my father to lean on to teach me how to do this stuff, and his friends, I probably would still have tried my hand at it already. But I'd be doing the same thing that, he did when he first started. I'd be driving out and parking on the side of the road somewhere and hiking in. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I do owe quite a bit to my father and his friends for extending the invitation. But at the same time, I've had to earn my keep in camp, and that's earned every single day when you're out there. So but like I said, for people to want to go and do this, really all it takes is it takes some planning, but you got to have the drive to be able to tangle with the mountains, because it's the romance dies off really quick when you're in the bottom of a canyon and you have to crane your head backward, almost backwards to see the top. So there's just a lot that goes into it, but at the end of the week. Might not be the most enjoyable week of your life, but it will be one of the most memorable.
Let's start right at your home there in New York. You're going elk hunting. The unit you're hunting. And one of the best tips I ever got, they said, Bruce, I don't care where you're hunting. Figure out where you're going hunting, and then get on Google Earth, get the Topo maps, and study. So how do you study on Google Earth?
What I've learned in order to make the best use of the short time that I'm in camp. Like I said, with elk, there are specific spots and pieces of terrain that they like to hang out in. And you'll hear from everybody, it's not the north-facing timber. So what I really try to do not just, see it on Google Earth, identify the hotspots that I want to go check out, and then I plug those coordinates into my Garmin Rhino, and from there I will, from camp, I'll just be able to plug that in and go. But with Google Earth, like I said, I'm just trying to identify, a good feed that's near north-facing timber. And where I hunt is so it's very not so much high alpine meadows. I'm only hunting at about 5,600 feet. But it's very broken with a lot of water cut drainages. So I realized that I might have to, I've got to identify the small pockets that are very, very low on these canyons. I know I'm going to lose, a couple thousand feet in elevation to get down to where the animals are. So that's really what I try to identify, just good pieces of north-facing timber with good feed around them. And then obviously water. And I know that there's water at the bottom of these drainages, but they are brutal. And then that's where the working out comes in place.
So, in an average day, let's talk about when you wake up and when you're back in camp, fed, and back in your sleeping bag.
An average day, I'm going to plan out, the night before when I'm eating a mountain house, we're talking strategy. So really, an average day looks like, I'm trying to get out of camp at least an hour before light in order to get to my spot, where at least I want to start. From there, it's really just I see it as a day-long still hunt until I can get onto a group of animals or I get one talking. Where I'm hunting, it's so wolf heavy that it's kind of like hunting turkeys in the east sometimes, where there's a lot of coyotes in the area. Those turkeys don't gobble, and likewise these elk are so pressured from wolves and from people that I've got if there's one talking, I gotta try to cut the distance as fast as I can. A, without spooking him, but B, so I when he does go silent, that I'm somewhat within the area. And, when you get into those odd hours of 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock and during the day, you still have something to do, hopefully. And you're not just, feel like you're stuck with nothing to do. So like I said, I'm hunting towards, a particular location or through one. I try to not take a whole lot of midday siestas, which are very tempting to do, because I'm trying to explore, new land, new ridges, when it's basically dead. In September, you have some of those types of days where it's just big bluebird days and not a whole lot talking. So then about 3 o'clock, is when, between 2 and 3 is when I start moving towards where I want to focus on for the evening hunt, and just creeping my way toward, if I'm going to try to catch something coming out of the bedding area, or get to a vantage point where when, something does start moving, that I can make a move without spooking them. So kind of playing, again, that's, if nothing's singing, then, I'm trying to get myself in a position where I think they might come out to feed, and then hunt the night out, try to put one to bed and get back to camp and have something to eat.
So what time are you back at camp?
Oh, geez. Well, there's been some times right after dark, and then there's other times where it's just, I've come back at camp at midnight or more in the past, depending on, the canyons that we're climbing out of. So, it's, I try to, I really don't like to leave before dark. And even though some people don't like to do that, I had, you have a headlamp for a reason, and so, especially if, there's been some scenarios where you kind of get pinned down and you can't, you've got elk out in front of you and you want to come back and get them the next morning. So you might have to wait for a little while for them to move off so you can get by them. So I don't know, when I'm out there, I don't have a schedule when I'm out there, phone goes off for 10 days, and I don't have to be anywhere in particular. And that's just kind of I just hunt, part of my whole day is just hunting to the next really the next spot on my GPS, and trying to stay consistent with looking for good feed and water and the north facing slopes. And if that means I got to walk, put 10, 15 or more miles on my legs every day, I mean, that's what we're there for. And I'll never forget when my uncle Bryce told me that. He we looked at the canyon, and I asked if if we could get horses down there to get meat out, and he goes, no. He goes, but that's what we're here for. We're here to go get elk meat. So we'll go down there and spend 3 days pulling one out if we have to. That's not a problem. So
I like Uncle Bryce because, folks, the elk hunt doesn't end when the sun sets, and it begins before the sun rises. And that's from this guy's point of view, that's the day of elk hunting. And if it's 12 o'clock when you get back, that's when it is. And you got to be comfortable. I would say this, and thanks for bringing it up, Jason. You have to be comfortable in the dark, finding your way back to camp. And before GPSs, we had to use maps and compasses. But once you hunt an area for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years or longer, all of a sudden it becomes like your backyard, even though you're 5 miles from camp. It doesn't matter because right. Okay, as soon as I hit this rock, I got to turn right and I got to go down to that big lightning struck pine tree. Then I'm turning left and I'm going to find No Name Creek, and I just follow that out and I'm at camp. Yeah, it's 3 hours away in the dark, but you know that. Yep. So there isn't any of that fear. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am, because that can really mess you up. But that's why I tell people all the time, if you're coming out, you're going to spend 2 or 3 years learning where you're hunting. One, you're going to learn real quick, are there any elk there? If they're not, leave, find a different place. 2, once you find the elk, those elk are going to leave unless they get shot. The wolves come and blow them up, or something changes to the terrain, a big drought, a big fire, all those type of things. So you got to be aware of that. But having said that, the biggest thing I see why some elk hunters don't succeed, 1, they don't get up before dawn, and 2, they don't leave the hill, the ridge, the mountains, the meadow till after dark. Your thoughts?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think one of the best examples I have is with my little brother Austin, and so he had the chance to go out with my dad his senior year of high school, and he shot a 300-inch 6x6 as a 17-year-old. He was all by himself, and he figured out that some elk were hitting a particular meadow, and he stayed right till dark. He didn't take off he didn't take off out of fear, out of the because the dark, it was getting dark. I mean, he shot this thing right in the last 10 minutes of shooting light. So I absolutely agree. I mean, that's when they're going to, especially if it's hot, sometimes it could be 80, 90 degrees on these hunts. I mean, those elk aren't going to move until right at dark sometimes. So yeah, and another thing is too, I mean, for me, one of my favorite canyons, it's extremely difficult to hunt, right? But I also know that there's some guys in the area that I've run into the last couple of years. They're the only other people that go down in this canyon, and we typically don't hunt the same weeks of the season. But like last year, I saw them pulling into camp right in my last couple of days of the hunt, and I knew exactly where they were going. So I woke up, an extra 2.5 hours early to get in the bottom of this canyon before they even got on their horses. And long story short, they were calling it a bull. That scenario that I described earlier, they were up above me, and they were calling at this bull, and I was right in his wheelhouse. And just it was funny later that when I was walking out of the canyon, that they're like, "How is anyone else down here?" It was kind of ridiculous, and getting down to the bottom of that canyon in the dark was not the easiest thing in the world. But it's absolutely imperative, on public land to make that commitment. Like I said, you're there for 10 days, and for me, I spent way too much time and money on doing this and living this lifestyle. So I'm going to take every take advantage of every second I can to be out there.
Let's talk about elk sign and vocalization, because we've all heard snort wheeze, and we've all heard grunts, and we all heard antlers banging in the whitetail woods. Now, how does that correlate to the elk hills or mountains?
I mean, whitetails make some vocalizations, but with elk, it's obviously a different ball game. A lot of people, I think, a lot of eastern hunters that want to go west, they kind of bank on a lot of their chips on just finding the bugle and calling one in. That does happen. Yes, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. The way that my evolving theory is to figure out how to hunt these things without the vocalization there, because if I'm banking all my chips on them bugling all the time and they're not bugling, what the heck do I do? And so that's again why I do a lot of reading to figure out what exactly to do if they're not being vocal. That being said, I think one of the things that is really hard to not do, and I remember when I shot my first bull, we got on this group of animals that were they're tearing up the bottom of this little drainage, and I just wanted to get in there and start dancing with them. So, but the wind was bad, right? And it was so hard to not peek, try to peek over the edge to try to get a look at these animals and get closer because the wind was wrong. What we ended up doing was just listening to them. We had, we had all morning. There was no one else around, and we just let the animals kind of do their thing. And they ended up moving into a position. They actually moved up the drainage, up onto this finger ridge, and into they were headed to some north face timber. And we knew that from looking at the map. And when they hit the top of that finger ridge, we could tell that they were the way the bull was bugling. We could kind of tell that he was getting ready to bed up for the afternoon. And we were able to slip up behind the herd. And so now we're in a calling situation. And with in this particular scenario, my dad pulled out his calf call, and he made one calf call, and it broke a satellite bull came running back looking for us. And I was able to make the shot on him. So there's a lot of different situational calling, and just kind of like turkey hunting. There's a lot of different situations to look for. And so I have an evolving understanding of elk calling. I try not to overcall, and try not to call real hard when I'm in close on them. But like I said, for where I hunt, because there's so much pressure, I actually get probably less exposure to elk calling, just because for whatever reason, especially the last 2 years, those elk have run away from the calls. And we think that's just really in part due to the number of people there where we hunt and the predator pressure. So I do have like I said, I'm working to have an evolving understanding. I understand the basics, and when to call and when not to call. I understand how to do that, and that just comes. It's kind of like turkey hunting. You learn it as you go. But I think the biggest thing that people can do is, especially guys in my situation, like I said, try to figure out what your game plan is going to be when they're not talking. Don't just totally bank your entire hunt on having them bugling their heads off, because that might not happen. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the matter.
Wow, this has been great, and I'm taking notes. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for being part of the Whitetail Roundup 2017 Elk Special Edition, brought to you by GoHunt.com. And saying that, Jason, I can't wait till I get the opportunity to bring you out of Wyoming down into Colorado, and we can mix it up with some of the bulls down there, because you'd be a heck of a guy to hunt with, that's for sure.
Well, I look forward to that day.
As promised, here's the good stuff. When you sign up for your membership at GoHunt.com Insider, you're going to get a promo code, WR2017. Again, that promo code is WR2017. What's that going to do? Well, that's going to enable you, when you pay for your membership, to get a $50, yes, $50 Sportsman Warehouse gift card. So here's the deal. You go to www.gohunt.com/insider and fill out all the information. We're going to ask for a promo code, put in WR 2017. And when you get verification of your membership in the mail, you will get from GoHunt.com a $50 Sportsman Warehouse gift card. Couldn't be any simpler. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous DIY in the Rockies Special Edition.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.